Hello and welcome to the Tireless Pilgrims podcast. I am Curtis, and this guy over here is my buddy Lewis, also known as the very first barber.
What's going on,
my guy?
What up? Happy times, everyone. Hopefully for all of y'all.
Times.
I don't know what time of the week is it for y'all. Could be, if it's the middle of the week, I hope it's an excellent middle of the week. If it's the weekend, I hope it's about to pop off. If it's Monday, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
All right.
Nothing we can do about that.
Today we're talking about power.
Strength of your decks.
Mm-hmm.
Power. And all things related. Power is such a subjective topic, Curtis.
Yeah. I want to get into this one because it's something I have a hard time with. Okay. So when I moved out here, and the first time I was able to play at the LGS Play Live, I brought my Sir Voltron list. Okay. I didn't think it was too strong. It doesn't have any like crazy combos. It's Voltron. Like edict effects ruin the deck.
Mm-hmm.
I will not be able to play. But it has so many like oppressive cards.
Okay.
So I didn't consider it high power. Like it has Mystic Study, it has Test Protection, Deadly Relic. It's got the heat. I think at that time I had Mana Crypt in it too. So there they only have like, well, at the time they had either CDH or casual.
Okay.
It most definitely wasn't going to keep up with CDH. So I was like, yeah,
right.
This is a casual
especially
deck.
if it's a Voltron list, I feel
Oh, yeah. I was like, I'm going to get stomped out. There's no point. And then I ended up doing to the table what would have happened to me if I had played at the CDH table. I felt bad, but I was like hyped I won, but it felt dirty, you know?
Yeah. Never feels good.
No.
When there's a little bit of like I'm going a little fast like moment, but like you're like, also, but this is fine.
Also, the thing was I didn't get to go very fast. I was mana screwed in the beginning.
Oh. So did you go a little under the radar, a little undetected?
Yeah, that happens quite a bit for me though.
So you're saying just focus you anyway?
No, that's never the answer. That is never the answer. Absolutely not. Yeah, but
yeah, I go under the radar and then I just start winning. So
yeah. Yeah, same with the Tufasa. Yeah, I did have, what was it? Replenish.
Okay.
In the Tufasa game. And it ended up I ended up playing against, it was 2 precons and an upgraded precon.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It like didn't seem fair. And I only had,
even though Tufasa starts in a precon.
Yeah. Mine was like, it was most definitely not a precon. Especially not that precon. But like, yeah, I felt bad because those were the only 2 decks I had brought that night.
Okay.
It's just like,
at the LGS I first started playing EDH at, we didn't know, like there were no like power levels there, at least not to my knowledge. Like no one ever mentioned like a power level when like sitting down. But like I saw certain people who would have certain commanders and I was just like, oh yeah, no, we're not sitting over there. Like I saw these 2 kids legit put out like a Thrasios Tymna list. And I was like, I don't even have to know what's in that deck. I was like, I'm not messing with that. I saw another kid had like, who did he have in the zone? I forgot who. I just remembered knowing, I think it was like a Saheeli list. And at the time, there were people playing that Saheeli commander list and people were doing a lot of crazy stuff with it.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember seeing it at LGS's and like too many people being stoked to have Saheeli. And I was like, nah, I'm not.
Yeah, that was
I'm not doing
the
that.
planeswalker that could be your commander, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't even remember what people were doing. Maybe it was just like blue, blue red artifacts go burr,
Mhm.
Reckless Fire Weaver was out by that time. But I remember we sat with this guy who was very chill, and we didn't think that he was gonna like come with any crazy heat because he had an Oloro deck. So I was like, okay, he's like a life gain guy. That's cool. I had Crick. I remember very specifically, I had Crick. I brought a friend and let him borrow my, what list did he borrow? He borrowed an Is It list that I had. And my other friend had like either a Naya list or something. So we were like, my Crick list maybe might have been the thing that was like strongest amongst the three of us, but
Mhm.
like definitely more dirtly because like everyone else had green and like solid game plans. Or is no, the Is It deck, no, the Is It deck had a pretty solid amount of lands. The green deck was like they were playing very consistently. Mine was like a little more like get lucky. If you get Crick out, you do a bunch of crazy stuff.
Mhm.
Otherwise, like you're kind of just dirtling until Crick can be out and not die. And then like the Oloro guy was like about like I think by turn 5 he had some way to like drain somebody like fully. And I remember
Mhm.
being like, whoa, whoa, like none of us are even like playing anything yet. Like we were just like all like what?
Yeah.
And that was definitely like the first time we saw like a true high power list because he started playing like Mana Crypts, Mana Vault, and even told us like he realized a little bit down the line like, yeah, I have a couple of ways to win right now, but I kind of just want to play, so I'm gonna like we're just gonna play it out. And I remember being like, okay, like
Mm.
I don't know what, like there came a point that then like things were happening, like he could have won at one point and then like someone else could have won, and I was just like, all right, I guess this guy really just kind of I don't think he got to play Magic a lot and like just was having a good time and was like, all right, I'm
Mhm.
just gonna like try to stick it out. This is a fun pod. But I remember like leaving that night and being like, that was one of the craziest decks ever. Like he had like everything. Like he was dropping a Ristic Study. He had a Tef's Protection. Um, I remember his win con involved this Orzhov card that would drain you for everything, and then like having some effect out on the board to then just drain everybody, something like that. It was one of the split cards. It would drain you
Oh
for
yeah.
half your life.
And then you gain
Yeah,
that
so
much.
he would do it
Yeah,
was
that
some
would like veto or Sanguine Bond.
yeah,
That'll do it. Yeah.
he was doing something gnarly like that. And I remember that was also like the first time I saw like a good efficient combo like pop off. And
Hmm.
I was just like, wow. And I guess like in hindsight now I look at it like that's not an efficient combo. What?
Yeah.
Um
You said two things that I didn't bring up earlier. You said WinCon. My Tuvasa WinCon was to turn everything into an enchantment and blow up your enchantments. Mine would have protection. So
whoa.
that was
Whoa.
totally not fair. Like I blew up lands and
You
everything.
blew up everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's every
Oh
permanent,
yeah.
basically.
Of
Oh,
course.
these are all enchantments now.
Yeah.
Bow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You turn. There was also a way to turn your enchantments into
It's rough.
creatures. So your lands would be creatures, and then you just like get rid of everything.
Wow.
Yeah, I was totally not in the right spot for that. And then you
That's
said
amazing.
something about Timna,
Yeah.
Timna Thrasios. I have
Yes.
I have two lists with Timna, and
Mhm.
they're not high powered. Um, they're both life gain decks.
Okay. And
Oh,
she does have lifelink in the zone.
yeah, and it's card draw. It's a
And a card
add.
draw. Yeah, it's a card advantage engine and it gains you life.
Yeah, there was a. It's Timna Kadama, the life gain.
Mm.
It does have combos in it, but I don't
We
think it's high power.
love a Kadama deck. You know how
I
I
don't
feel
think it's
about
high power.
Kadama.
And then there's Timna Kydel, the TheTireless ones. I like that combo. It was
Kydel, so that's a mana dork in the zone,
yeah.
right? Yeah, for amount of cards in hand,
How many
right?
cards you've drawn that turn?
Drawn that turn. That's right.
So
That's
there's
mine.
lots of synergies there, but I don't the way I have it built, it's not high powered. It was like I think I still have that list somewhere. I'll post it if I do.
Just very chill, not going
Yeah, it
for
was
like
life
a
gain.
attack. Because
No,
if
it's
I hear that, I'm thinking, ooh, I'm making 4 mana a turn. I'm playing artifacts, or I'm playing Eldrazi, or I'm
no,
playing.
no. I the one time I played it, like I didn't cast Kydell at
I know.
all. No, like it's not built around her. I just wanted her for the colors,
Okay,
and I knew if I
I
put
feel that.
Thrasios there, I would get targeted.
And there is no other green blue
No,
option. Yeah,
no.
so I feel
I could
that.
play a Traxa, but I feel like that's even more scary in a casual setting.
Some commanders, eh?
Yeah, I just
Some
want the colors.
commanders. Yeah. Some commanders you can't just go in for the colors though.
Yeah.
They just instantly become a different thing. I actually was going to ask you, what do you think about things in the zone that instantly are like oh, that's not going to be weak kind of like idea?
Um, that's tough because I get scared seeing certain commanders. I'm like, oh, I don't want to play against that. I know what that deck is, but everybody builds their deck differently.
Mhm.
Like I played this guy who had a Chatterfang deck, and he didn't include the Pitiless Plunderer combo in there
Okay.
because he was like,
Right.
I like this commander, but I don't want it to be that strong. I want to be able to play with my friends,
Right.
who didn't
Right.
have such strong commanders. So what he did was he was like, I'm not going to tell you what my commander is, but I will tell you what my deck is trying to do, which I think is very fair.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I feel like um I think just in that situation, always like being honest about some
Yeah.
part of what your deck is doing will like help, because if especially, and then like the proof's in the pudding when you're playing, if it starts doing the opposite, like good
Yeah.
night. We're about to, it's a different game now.
Yeah.
We about to tussle now. I was leaving you alone. I want to see what you were doing. No, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I've had that happen actually, where like someone said their deck wasn't X with a scary commander in the zone, and then
And then
like
it
game,
was.
and then the game went on, and I was like, hold up, you liar. And this is a thing, obviously this happens when you play with people you don't know. This is not a thing
Mhm.
that happens with people you know. This is only a thing that happens with people that you've never seen before. And especially online, when I was playing a lot of online, and there's a lot of either not knowing or just like, willful misrepresentation. Just like, oh nah, this doesn't do that.
Yeah. So we I know that your favorite deck is Permacon, but you have a few different versions.
Yeah,
You have what would you consider your casual Permacon list to be?
my casual list
Like if you
is
had to put a number on it.
it's pretty high powered. I would say in a 1 to 10 scale, it's I would say it's like an 8.
8. Okay.
I would say it's a solid 8, because I know when the cards that are supposed to be in there are in there with the right hand, things just get out of hand pretty quick. Um, Especially with some of the new things that Wizards been giving us. So like, yeah, that deck can definitely can win pretty quickly. But at the same time, I guess it can dirtle. I would say, but it's a strong deck. I know that like if left alone, it's not going to be nice to the table. It's not going to be something the table wants for me to be left alone with that deck.
Yeah.
Um,
Me looking at it now, I don't know. I feel like it might be stronger than that.
It can be, but at the same time, I know it's very mulligan dependent.
Hmm.
Um, and like some of the win cons are a little weird. So they, well, not weird in that it's just they require a little extra setup because some of like the planeswalker ones require the things and then like a
Hmm.
chain veil.
So I
Um,
see two combos so far. And I think this is funny. The Coveted Jewel, which is a 6 mana artifact that ETBs draws 3 cards and taps for 3 mana.
yeah.
You also have that with Mana Crypt. I would
Hmm.
never think of putting those two in the same deck. They
Yeah.
feel so
So
opposite on like the
right.
power scale.
Yes. So I want to mention Coveted Jewel looks like it's a casual chill card.
It's
That card,
it's
that card's
sick.
actually not chill at all. And if you play the right things to like do that more than once or bounce that thing, that card is ridiculous. I know that 6 mana makes it look like it's a very casual card, but like if you have any reducer of any kind, it's a Gilded Lotus with upside that as long as you're playing correctly, you should be able to keep it on your side. I think the only thing is that you have to remember that when you play it, you probably should want to try to like win maybe that turn because you don't want anybody else to get it. I have had one game. I remember one game specifically where I lost it in a high powered game and a random player that was playing with us then berated me after the game, was like, you shouldn't play Gilded Lotus if you're going to lose it. I mean, a Coveted Jewel if you're going to lose it. And I was like, listen, man, I didn't mean to lose it. Fucking excuse me, sir. You know what? I'm logging off. I'm logging off. Our game is over anyway, so bye.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
but like
Mm,
obviously, yes, you want to be able to hold on to it. But is that burst and burst and card draw sometimes necessary? I think so. And like getting it in a colorless source makes it pretty dang cool. I
yeah.
In more recent years, I started playing it more in high powered lists because on the right turn, it's just like I'd rather have that than a Gilded Lotus. And like some people still play Gilded Lotus in high power. I don't think it's like really should be played that much
No.
these days, but you can in the right list. But I think in those right lists, I'd probably just
Mm,
rather have the Coveted Jewel because then I'm doing more.
okay.
But
This is
yeah,
another.
I think Pramicon with those cards only work in there because of some of the combo pieces,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, I see another one. Another thing is you have two OG duels in here. Do you think that those change the power level at all?
Um, in that deck, I know that the duels don't change that much because those were when I originally proxied lists. I think my current list that I have now only has one OG duel as of recently. Um because normally I actually then realize like I need to the deck I play, I've taken out the proxy of the OG duels because it doesn't really mess with the power level that much. It might maybe it shouldn't come up often because all the other fixing in the deck.
Okay.
But I think that sometimes a perfect mana base can change a little bit only in the sense of the options available to you. If you're playing every rainbow land,
Hmm.
if you're playing all OG duels, if you're playing every fetch, when it's time to cast a spell, you always have the mana for that spell.
Okay.
And sometimes in like if you're playing more basics, you're just not going to be able to cast your turn to counterspell on something because like you just didn't draw into the blue, even though you're in two colors. You might have drawn two mountains instead, you know. And if you were playing all the duels, like maybe you wouldn't. You would have your two blue red sources and instead just be able to play either your counterspell or like an expressive iteration instead. Like you would just have more options. Um, so I think that's where that changes. Like it opens up your options when your mana base is perfect. And I think that does kind of affect your power level when you're just like able to answer and do whatever all the time. Even
Okay.
though you do get lucky in decks that run basics to be able to just always have the mana for your answers.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
I was gonna bring up fetch lands, but you aren't running off-colored ones.
No, I don't always
Okay.
like to.
I hate it.
It's not, yeah. I don't do I don't try to. If I
Even in my high power deck, I don't like it. I recently put them in there, and then I was like, "This is gross," so I took two of them out.
yeah. And like I know some people do it. I don't want to even like, but like if you start seeing fetches in a monocolored deck,
Yeah,
run. Be careful. You
that's what
already
I'm
know what this
saying.
person's about.
Tashar,
Yeah,
he
right.
had he had all four, but I took out two. But it's like this is too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
If you
too
start
much.
doing
Okay,
that, then it's like, ooh, excuse me.
but Tashar is my highest power deck. It can win turn one with the perfect hand.
Uh-huh. Oh, we know.
But okay, my Alinda deck is currently my favorite, and it has a near perfect mana base. It has Smothering Tide. It has Meat Hook. It has Altar.
Mhm.
Phyrexian Altar.
Right.
It's got Ink Shield, Test Protection,
Yeah.
Unmaking.
Cards, all these cards you're naming are cards that I'm like, ding, high power, ding, high power. High
Okay.
power plus, you know?
Okay. It has Machias. It has the Veto, exquisite
Mhm.
combo. It's got Timna in there.
That
Dothy,
deck is beautiful.
Ballista.
What a
But
gorgeous, what a gorgeous deck.
I don't think it's high powered. I would say it's like
Hmm.
high 6, 7.
Hmm.
It what do you think about that?
So see, okay. I understand where you're coming from because I know that some of those pieces that you're mentioning don't necessarily say win the game on
Mm-hmm.
them. It's more about like,
Meat
especially
Hook does.
meat hook. Okay, meat hook can, especially with Alinda. But the rest of those cards are generally fine when they're doing the thing like once a little bit every once in a while. Smothering
Mm-hmm.
Tithe, especially you're in white black, so it's not like you're doing wheel stuff. You're doing like, okay, you guys are drawing cards, I'm gonna make a little extra treasure. But I do think that all those cards inherently kind of add like a baseline of
Mm-hmm.
high power to your deck because there's just such a high density of them. And like if someone were to be like, here, if you were just like, here's my deck list before playing a game, I think most people would probably look at that and be like, whoa, okay.
Okay.
Um, all right, I'll play a good deck. Um,
Actually,
because you have like, even if you're there's not seeing the things laid out and your plans as they come to fruition, I think just like people know what those cards do and instantly are like, well, that card does a thing well and that card does a thing very well. Like you named a bunch of cards that do the things they do extremely well,
mm-hmm.
and I think that inherently sometimes just becomes like high powered stuff.
do you
Even sometimes if they can be done like in a dirtly way, you can obviously do any card in a dirtly way.
do you think that this deck and your Pramicon deck go go good in a pipe?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I think you have from what I remember in the list, you have a lot of removal.
Yeah.
And
But you have so many counter spells.
there are a lot of counter spells in that deck. But you have to draw into them. Pramicon doesn't have any built-in card advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So the mulligan in that deck is so important. And like if you don't keep a hand that can power out some way of either giving you card advantage or giving you decent board presence, um, like Alenda would take it to town because Alenda would be able to attack into it. Um, if you remove Pramicon and he costs 5, then I get hit in a
Mm-hmm.
dilemma where I'm like, I want to cast a 5 mana Planeswalker, but I probably should cast Pramicon first. and then cast that 5 mana planeswalker later. Like, so I know that like the weakness of that deck is like losing Pramicon too early and having to like not be able to direct combat the way I want.
Okay.
Because I guess inherently one of the reasons I feel it's a little high powered is because he's inherently a stacks commander. Because of what his effect does, it
Yeah.
changes the way the game normally plays. So I think Alenda and Pramicon in that pod with you with a good mulligan versus me with like a decent mulligan. I think Alenda wins that pod more than Pramicon does.
So I have one tutor in here, and it's Tithe. It's a land tutor.
Okay.
If I'm excluding like Fabled Passage and Marsh Flats.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't have any other tutors.
Okay.
That
I didn't realize that.
yeah. This is like if I don't draw it, that's it. I have what I have.
How many card draw spells are in place of what would be tutors?
I think there's like off the top of my head, I think there's like 8 or 9.
Okay. Okay. And are some ways to like burst into a lot of cards?
No.
Okay. It's mostly like little bursts.
It's like one at a time.
Okay.
It's not like a draw 5.
Okay. All right. That actually does change things a little bit. Because then you do have to rely on these like perfect draws. And I know, yeah, that does change things actually a lot.
So this is my problem. There's so many things to take into account. How do you actually put a number on your deck? Like, how do you decide what power level it is?
I think like brevity in like how quick you win, I think has to be a huge consideration. And I think not like goldfished, because like goldfished, we all win quick.
Yeah.
Like real games that you've played the deck, how many turns did it take for that deck to do the thing? Especially some decks like combat decks, sometimes you're not going to actually be able to goldfish that perfect. So you should want to like know how many times you've played the deck, how many times it usually can get there. And I think that's one thing to keep into consideration. So like turns, like what turn you usually win. I think the kinds of things the deck does, if it has an uninteractable like style of combo that involves like an activation of a creature that like you can usually get down on like in a protected way.
Alenda does have a bunch of combos in here. There's a few cards I left off. So I'm saying all the good cards.
Yeah. So I think if you have like a high density of those kind of things, or it's very easy for you to do that thing if left alone, I think that adds into it. So like a very efficient win con, or multiple win cons, or your commander is a win con in and of itself, you know. Okay. I think if so turns, efficiency of winning, so like if you can like win quickly with this like crazy 2-card combo, like 2-card combos are pretty nutty most of the time. So like I think if you have like a 2-card combo in your deck, but like you have like a handful of them, like yeah, that's pretty that adds to power, I think.
So there's 2-card combos, but they're like 6+ mana. Okay. And the rest are like 3 or 4 card combos. And I don't have tutors.
Okay. Once I think, well, we're definitely gonna, I think that's gonna go to number 3. So how easy it is for you to find and do those things. Like you mentioned the card draw you have in that deck not being like super like crazy amounts of card draw. That definitely does tie into like if you're not drawing a bunch, then you're not always able to see all the cards to just be like, boom, I win. So I think that does tie into it. If you're running a bunch of tutors, you're most likely going to see a piece of your combo throughout a game. Like that just means you have a higher chance of seeing it. So I think that definitely should be something to keep into consideration, like finding the actual win cons, the efficient win cons. If you can find efficient win cons easily, then like you're gonna win easily. So I think that has to be also kept into consideration. And I don't think the price of a deck necessarily should be considered, but like I think there should be an understanding generally, if you're putting a card in a deck, what that card is and does and what it's about. Like let's say a card like Time Twister is not very, it's not a card you're going to encounter very often.
Yeah.
But like let's say I'm playing Xyrus, a card that deals with wheels, and I'm like, you know, it's very different if I'm starting the game and I'm like, yeah, I'm playing Xyrus, but you know, I'm playing like budget wheels, I'm playing Windfall, I'm playing
Windfall might be budget, but it's one of the best ones, I think.
Yeah, Days Undoing, etc.
Okay.
But then like someone's like, oh yeah, I'm playing Time Twister, I'm playing Wheel Fortune, I'm playing the jar, memory jar, like I'm playing all these other wheels. Then I'd be like, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that just adds a little bit more. It's not a lot, especially, but then also if that same person that's talking about Time Twister is also like, and there's a Gaia's Cradle in there. Because then I'm like, oh, you're making snakes and then your guy is cradling. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are two totally different decks.
So I think like there's a little bit of like a context of understanding like the cards in your deck. And I think like sometimes you have to like mention that in a rule 0 combo. Like you got to be like, yeah, this has a Gaia's Cradle in it. So like just know. And like, oh, and I run crop rotation, so I might find it. You might see a Gaia's Cradle today. Like, is that it? I think so. Like, I think that is another thing, like just thinking about like certain cards, the price of them, just like even though price isn't necessarily the thing, like those cards might, you know, bring a little efficiency that like cards of a cheaper price just don't necessarily do. These cards are expensive for a reason, you know.
So let's say that my Alinda deck is a high 7-8.
Okay. Yeah.
And
I think that is yeah.
Okay. So I think my high power, my CEDH deck is a 9. I don't think those two decks could play the same game. Like Tishar can go. Also, it's the mulligan with Tishar. Like if my hand is garbage, I won't do anything.
Right.
But then again, I can also win turn 1 with the proper hand. That's something that also I have a hard time with. I don't think it's
consistency in the mulligan.
Like, there's no way that this is a 10. It's a mono white list, you know, artifact list.
I was gonna say, do you think with the right upgrades or like the right kinds of pieces, like would it get to a 10? Do you think it's like a possibility that it could even be? I
don't think so. Okay. I do not think so. Like I have a bunch of tutors, I have removal. There's not many good white counter spells. There's a few counter spells, but I don't think they're good. Mana Tithe is in the sideboard.
Should be in.
It should, but
no
the one time I had it in hand, he had the mana to pay for it, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, I guess, and I feel that does suck.
Yeah,
but you might have thrown him off on mana.
No, he was playing Muldrotha.
Yeah,
he was fine.
They don't care. Oh, there's a pedal in there. It's fine. That's cool.
Yeah, the
Okay.
the mana curve is super low.
Okay.
It's ooh. I just noticed how many lands are in here. That might not be right. But if it is, it makes sense why I didn't have lands that one game.
How many lands?
The number right here says 24.
Curtis.
I don't know how that happened.
I don't
I
even know.
hope
Then
that's wrong.
I was gonna say I shouldn't have lost that deck. 24 lands in it. What the heck?
Yeah.
What? That's amazing, actually. The fact that that one game more recently, people listening, people watching, I have to say, Curtis recently played a game with me and some friends. Curtis pulled out Tashar because we were all talking about wanting like a quick game. We all pulled out our strong decks for a quick game.
Yeah.
And
just to save face here, I did say 8 or 9 power level.
Yeah, for sure. No. Listen, I am not. No. We all had decks that do the thing and do the thing efficiently and fast. And it was absolutely, we brought 8/9s. I think I was playing mono green. So I know that deck is definitely
no, you were playing Magda.
Oh, okay. Nah, that's definitely like an 8.5 to 9 for sure.
Yeah.
The right hand, that deck is ridiculous too.
Yeah.
So like I get it. And the rest of the pod also had pretty good decks, and I believe we all had good starting hands. I don't think anybody mulliganed to like lower than the 6. So we were all pretty stoked on our hands, ready to see some craziness eventually. Curtis had a 1 lander or 0?
0.
It was a 0. It was a 0 lander. And he said, pre-game, we heard him say, man, I don't know if I should keep this, but I'm going to go for it. Okay. I know what I had in hand, and I think I had maybe like a turn 4 win. If left unchecked. Yeah, if left unchecked, I had a turn 4 win without a doubt. So like, I know that I was like playing a little close to the chest because I was like, I gotta have some of these things have to go like perfectly right for me to be able to win quick. But Curtis was like,
I guess we could just like straight up talk about it. I'll add the gameplay to the end of this video.
Nice. Yeah, that's right. That we did record that. And he had a first turn that was just like dump. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, his hand, he has nothing in hand almost. Like,
yeah,
this is kind of wild.
I ended the first turn with 2 cards in hand.
2 cards in hand. So
and no lands on board.
2 cards in hand, but he had mana on board for sure.
Yeah.
I think you had Tashar mana for next turn.
Yes.
Right? Like you needed to untap to be able to cast Tashar next turn. And I don't think anyone was able to mess with your board first turn. No. So it went around turn 2. I do believe you were able to do the thing.
I drew the piece I needed.
You drew exactly the card.
Yes, I drew exactly what I
did
needed.
the heckin' thing, and it was a beauty to see. And I know that I think I played something that turn, and I might have been able to play a destroy spell, like a destroy artifact spell, but instead I was like, no, I just cast my Magda.
Yeah, that's what you
did. It was amazing. It was sick. But we were all like, huh? Yeah. There's no lands there.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
He wins. Did not
expect that.
So we were all like, hold up. And then obviously when the loop was apparent, the writing was on the wall. We were all dead. It was amazing still.
I don't think this is a 10 though. It's most definitely not a 10. It's not super stacksy. It does have some pieces.
I do remember thinking like in a CDH game that would have like, I think the only difference it would have been countered and we would have had free interaction.
Yeah.
But I know like in red, there's not a lot of options. It wouldn't have probably had as
Has
many
a
options.
yeah.
I don't remember if there was a blue deck at the table.
Bruna, yeah. But I don't think that
Oh, true.
Bruna's like I think like a low eight. I think that build is it's strong, but
Right,
it's
right,
not like
right,
very counter heavy.
right, right. I do remember that. That's right. He said that that deck had a little bit less of the stuff that you might find traditionally in a high powered deck, but it definitely could win fast because
Hmm.
of combat damage
Yeah,
doing the
that
thing.
ability.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of high power decks, look at this. Let's look at this new one you put together.
Okay.
Rigatoni.
Rigo. So yes, this is a high powered list.
Oh, what is
Rigo.
this? Sorry,
What?
I've never seen this card.
Which card?
The Worm Crossing Patrol. It's just a
Uh
1/1 for one with Myriad.
yes, and
Huh.
it's great in that deck because you don't really care if he dies, you're still gonna get the thing, you know. And if no one can block it, you're just drawing 3 cards off that, off a one
Hmm.
one, off a 1/1 for one. So yeah, this is a high powered list, but it is missing.
One second. Does
Yeah,
that trigger work with Rigo? Whenever you attack a player, fence weapons one on one. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, that works. Never mind. Sorry.
yeah, because the things come
I
in.
thought it was an attacking trigger, like attack
No,
trigger.
yeah,
Okay.
it's just when
Yeah.
you attack it.
Yeah. It's one or more. Yeah. Okay.
Um, I
This
was gonna say.
is this is pretty cool.
So it's a weird list. It plays a lot of weird utility creatures that are small, that do things that aren't necessarily like super like, oh my God, what is he doing? But they just need to get in, and most of them are annoying enough that they get in.
Yeah.
I think people forget that like aggro is definitely viable if you're doing things by being aggro. Attacking just for attacking isn't going to do it unless you're putting a lot of power on the board. But when you're drawing cards for it, you can kind
Mm,
of like out of nowhere, your 3 silly like flyers are just like, oh, draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. And now I can play into these combos or whatever. These cards that might necessarily like kill someone, like a Quiet as Spike or Halo Fountain, things that just like kind of just like, oh, out of nowhere, I'm kind of dead.
this deck is very cool. I like I like everything so far.
I was gonna
And
ask,
especially like the price point.
the
This
price
is
point can be also like
this is
made even
great.
cheaper. It can be made a lot cheaper. And still be, you can, Rigo I think
Hmm.
is can be a $50 deck that still can play combos and draw tons of cards, because there's just so many good 1/1s now that are like commons and uncommons that people like. There's just a lot.
So looking at this so far,
Mhm.
I wouldn't consider this high power just based off of the lands.
So
Based
I was
off the
gonna say
lands and the
it
creatures.
it it absolutely is lowered by lands, and there is no Soul Ring.
Hmm.
There's no Ristic Study. There is no
It's
this is
not.
actually, so this is actually a house ban list deck
Okay.
that is high powered in that meta.
Okay.
Like in
Yeah,
that
this
meta,
is
it absolutely is like, oh, but I've also been able to play this deck outside of that meta, and it still absolutely performs like a regular deck. The only thing that's different is that you're not playing some of the same cards that everyone else is playing a little bit, like efficiency wise. um but with Rigo, I think Rigo himself is kind of a little bit like an Edric. He is a little bit inherently like higher power because the fact that it just can draw you so many cards.
mhm.
But at the same time, that deck is a deck where if I'm not drawing into the perfect lands, then yeah, I'm gonna be a little hosed a lot of the time. But at least with Rigo, most of the time you're gonna have Rigo mana, because he just needs white pips. And for the most part, I believe you usually draw into white pips.
I'm really glad that you brought up Soul Ring. Soul Ring is a busted card. I
Yeah.
think it should be banned. I think it's worse than Mana Crypt.
Soul Ring is absolutely busted, and it is worse than Mana Crypt because it doesn't
Even
ever hurt you. It
even
just gives you
though
upside nonstop.
it's under, it's like normally like $2. It's nuts.
It's nutty. When you start a game with
It's
that, it
yeah.
just changes. It
It
changes
mhm.
the whole game. It in this house ban list meta that we have, there's a couple of cards. I can send you that list so that
Okay.
you can see what's missing and what's not, and we can show that to everybody if you guys are interested to see what a house ban list looks like. These are cards that we took out because we realized like their efficiency can lead to games that just warp around that efficiency, and taking out those cards doesn't eliminate like the ridiculous stuff you can do still in
Yeah,
a
this
game of
looks dope.
Magic. Um, but like it makes it so that the way you get there has to be a little bit more interesting. Like it just forces it to be. You have to figure out weirder ways to make a lot of mana or to draw a lot of cards or to get rid of everything on the battlefield.
So in that pod, this would be considered a 9.
I wouldn't say this is a 9 though.
No,
No, I would say this is probably like a 7-8.
7,
Like
8. Okay.
a solid 7-8. Just
So
knowing that if like left unchecked with a lot of creatures on the board, you're just gonna eventually draw into one of those combo pieces.
okay. So outside of that, where would you put this?
A 6-7, but like
Okay.
a solid, like when it's a 7, it's a 7.
Okay.
Even though I know that's the cliche number.
It's a 7.
It's a 7. It's a 7. I think it's a solid 6-7 for sure.
Okay. So I want to take a look at your what would you say is your strongest deck? Which is the one that goes every time?
I think it also is on my Mox field. I would say my mono green Kadama Galanra partner list is probably my strongest deck that I play, own all the cards, love that deck. Like it's the deck I baby the most when I can like put a thing in there that's cool and shiny, next to Pramicon, because Pramicon is like just one of my first decks, period. So it's always going to be something I like just have elevated, I guess, a little bit because it's just grown with me as a Magic player. Whereas Kadama Galanra, I went into it knowing what I wanted to do.
So
Pramicon grew from like just ideas, whereas like Kadama Galanra, I saw the thing and I was like, combos, yes, elves, Kadama.
I don't think I've played this version like, against you.
Okay.
Or, like I haven't seen this. This is cool. I've never seen this pair, even though they are both from Commander Legends. I've never even thought of this. Huh.
So that deck intentionally is a elf combo deck a little bit, and having an elf in the zone that also was like, oh, I can also draw you cards in the right, at the right moment, just made it make sense because your commander, then the other commander that you have will draw you a card and then you take it from there. If you can get down an early Galanra in that deck, it kind of usually it can make or break the game. Like a turn 2 Galanra is a bit of a problem in that deck. And usually it's happening because there's a lot of dorks, a lot of turn 1
Yeah.
dorks.
Yeah. This is
That
pretty
deck is fun.
wild.
I love that deck. It's a very fun deck. And it is definitely one of the strongest decks I have. I think it's one of the ones where it always surprises me how quick it can win because so many things just synergize well with each other in that deck. And there's a lot and because Galanra can draw you cards sometimes out of nowhere, you draw into the piece just by casting a spell. So that's where, Yeah.
Wow.
With the right
This
hand. Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's a fun deck. And I think it's definitely I would say it's probably like an 8 to 9. I don't know if I'd ever say it's a 9. I would say it goes up to a little bit before getting to a 9, like an 8.8, because like
A high 8.
a high 8. Yeah. I think that there are times where the draw isn't great and you're playing things like on curve, just
Mm-hmm.
normal. And like that's fine too. The deck can definitely do that too. But I know that when with like the right hand, you're just drawing like a dork and then you're playing Galanran and probably also maybe somehow like playing another dork the next turn. And if one of those dorks just happens to be Priest of Titania, y'all know what elves do. They just kind of, and I think there's some
Mm,
redundancy. I don't think I have like I think that's another thing that deck has. It has a lot of redundancy. There's a lot of ways to tap for
mhm.
multiple mana. There's a lot of ways to make a lot of mana with like bouncing things and making things come back to still tap for mana. And I think especially at the time, I don't know if that one's updated. I didn't put Concordant Crossroads in there before it got a little bit more affordable. I didn't have a Concordant Crossroads in there, and if I know with a Concordant Crossroads, that also will just like that's another thing that makes that deck go
Mhm.
kind of wild. I know I've play tested with it and knows that like it was ridiculous.
Concordant Crossroads. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't want you having haste. I want haste. I don't want you having haste. Though.
I think I would only play it on a combo turn, on a comboing out
Okay.
turn, because then it makes the other way that I have haste in there is with either Greaves
Mm-hmm.
or crashing drawbridge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the drawbridge is fine because you can put Greaves on it and then like always
Yes.
do the thing. But
That's so funny.
it's
Well, with the boots.
yeah. But you sometimes I'd rather have the Concordant Crossroads as just like if that gets interacted with, I don't have to worry as much.
Okay.
I think it being two types, an artifact and a creature, makes it easier to interact with. Whereas Concordant Crossroads would be just one thing that could
You
mess
have
with it.
a bunch of tutors in here. Do you think that changes the level, power level?
Yes, for sure. That deck, because I remember when originally it didn't have any tutors, and it made it a lot more chill. It was more mid powered. It felt more like a 6-7 when it had no tutors. But then
Mhm.
the moment it got tutors, it just changed how quick I could win. Instead of having to maybe wait till like a turn 4 or 5, that deck was able sometimes to win on a turn 3. So like yeah, I think tutors changed the game a lot because a turn 1, I think there was a version of the deck originally that like would play Lotus Petal, so I'd be able to like turn
Mm,
1 dork and turn 1 tutor to like make the thing happen. If I like, let's say, had one of the pieces that might work with a Priest of Titania in hand, something like that. I'm mentioning Priest of Titania because it's the most efficient multi-mana
yes, it
tapper.
is.
But like it could have been any other one as long as you could tap for it. Uh, yeah, I think yeah, the tutors absolutely changed that deck. It made it so I know what the tutors were in there because they're there to win the game, to close it out.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of good cards in here. You got Avenger, you got Soul of the Harvest, Bane of Progress, Ashaya, Team of Sabretooth, Zavala, Priest of
Yeah.
Titania. You got some bangers, Natural Order, Rich Cards Expertise. See the Unwritten is not played enough. I
Yeah,
like that one a lot.
that card is really good.
I
It's
like
really
that
good.
one a lot.
And in there, it's 6 mana, correct?
Yes, 4 in
Yeah,
the
so
green.
it's also an extra card draw off Galanra.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the cards in there, I think that's another thing. Like that deck also adheres to a theme of 6 mana bombs, 6 mana
Mm-hmm.
plus bombs that will draw me cards. Because if I cast them with Galanra, they always just draw you a card. And that's another thing that even though the deck does adhere a little bit to that very well, it still can perform like it's not adhering to any theme at all. Where I think normally when you're going into that high optimized zone, you might not be playing some of the cards I'm playing in there.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm like, I want to still draw cards off Galanra, I think that's important. I think that extra card sometimes matters way too much. So it can adhere to that theme while still being strong as heck.
Barrier Breach, also slept on.
Oh, I love that card.
It's so good.
No one ever actually almost every time I've cast it, people have been like, "What is that? That's an instant."
It's so good.
Yeah, it's
For
a great
people who
card.
don't know, Barrier Breach, 2 and a green, exile up to 3 target enchantments.
And the best part about it,
It's got cycling.
it's never a bad card. It's never a bad
Oh my
card.
god.
And I've used Barrier Breach as a way to draw my deck in that deck with like e-witness loops and then getting
Making
it
all
back to
that
hand
mana.
and then
Yeah.
just keep drawing cards until I get to the card I needed. So like, yeah, that deck has a lot of ways to pivot. There's so many cards that have been like out of nowhere win cons in there. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff. And obviously there's like you could do beast within loops, all that stuff. You could do all that dumb stuff, but usually you're winning with like a Triumph of the Hordes.
Yeah, I saw that in here.
Yeah. Shouts to Cardboard Pimpin, aka Donnie and Jen. Donnie of Donnie and Jen fame, filthy MTG casuals.
That's pretty filthy if you ask me.
Yeah, they stick to their name, and I think they actually played that deck in its infancy, like very early on, and they were like, "You don't have a Triumph for the Hordes? I got you." And I was like,
that'll do it.
That was it was big ups, love y'all.
The
But
Emerald
yeah,
Medallion, that's a good one. That's one that I never think of playing. I do play all the other ones.
right. No one thinks to play the green one.
No.
In there, at times that also can make or break. I definitely also thought about cutting it. There's a lot of times I think about cutting it for like a dork of another dork of some kind, a new flashy dork that I'm like, ooh. But especially like there's been a couple of new ones from Dominaria United. I've been like, but I think that it is good to have. I think reducers, like I don't think people value reducers enough. Because yes, something that taps for mana in that place is better more of the time. Reducers can be just as good in that slot and sometimes can get you more. Yeah, I think they can get you so much more. I know in artifact decks,
yes,
I want every reducer possible.
Yeah.
And in creature decks, I want a little bit, but in that deck, it's just it hits every spell, and it makes it so that even though I might be paying 5 with Galanra, I'm still going to draw the card.
Yeah,
because
maybe that's why
it's a 6 mana.
Yeah, maybe that's why I didn't play it, because my mono green deck was Yorvo and he was green.
Right. It definitely it matters what cards you're playing for Emerald Medallion, specifically. If you're playing a lot of pips, it's not going to be as good.
Yeah, this is cool. I love that you have the same number of basics in this deck as I do, and as all my lands into Shard. It's great.
Oh my god. Oh, don't admit that. You want everybody to know that?
No, it's fine. It's high power. It doesn't need a lot of lands.
I mean, 24? My fault, Jack Bauer. Beep.
It's supposed to have 27. I don't know how it got to 24.
Was it MDFCs that like maybe you took out that were there instead?
I don't know. No,
because
I don't think I had MDFCs in here.
In there, okay.
No, not in this one. It didn't need it.
True.
It's either the Shard's either going to do the thing or do nothing.
Right.
It's not very reactive. It's like, hey, you locked me out. I'll just sit here.
Okay. Now I was going to ask you, what would
Yeah.
you say is actually on the opposite of that scale? What would you say is your lowest powered deck?
Oh,
And
oh
like, do you
man.
do you believe a deck?
I don't think a deck can
Yeah,
be like a 1 or 2.
I
That
was
doesn't
gonna
make
ask.
sense.
Okay,
That is,
like,
if it is playable, it is not a 1 or 2.
okay, like
Absolutely
I know
not.
I know sometimes people will like talk about their decks that are like their themed decks, but then like forget that they have like a powerful card that's a theme around their theme. And then like if it comes out of nowhere at the right time, you're like, oh, but we're all just dead to your weird chair card.
Yeah.
Um,
So maybe my lowest power is my, I would say Tolerance my lowest power. It's a Tolerant plus 15 other creatures. It does have
a lot of instant sorceries.
10 sorceries, 26 instants. There are some counter spells, but not a lot.
Damn. That sounds like a fun deck, actually.
The thing is, like, it doesn't work if Tolerant is removed.
Right. Because you want to be making drakes.
Yeah.
You need the drakes.
Mm-hmm. This doesn't have Mystic Study. It doesn't have Rift in here.
Do you, if it did have a rift, would it change the power level?
I think Rift is just so busted that it would have to go up.
Okay.
I would say this
Rift.
is like a 4 or 5, like
Okay.
pre-con level.
Okay. Fair. I was going to ask, do you think some cards have certain like numbers that just instantly like change the power level on them because of like just the strength of them?
Yes.
In Canadian Highlander, they attribute certain cards to certain like numbers, and then your deck has to have a certain amount of numbers. Once you hit over that number, like your deck's not legal in that format. You have to rearrange your numbers. Some cards don't rate for a amount. Like I'm explaining this in the weirdest way. Let me give an example. Like a card like Mana Crypt might be rated like, I don't know what it is. I don't play Canadian Highlander, so I'll say like it's rated at a 3. And I think in Canadian Highlander the most points your deck can have is 10. So now a Mana Crypt might be a 3, whereas like something like a Commander Sphere, or I guess a Commander Sphere might not work in Canadian Highlander. So a Manalith isn't rated anything. It's free basically for your deck. You can add it in without it hurting your points.
I
And do
think
you think a
yes.
card like Cyclonic Rift
Yeah.
instantly adds
Rift is
a,
7 points.
it just adds an extra 7
Yeah.
to your, like it makes your deck from a 4/5 to like a 6/7 instantly. Like it bumps it up a level.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this deck does have Allrun's Epiphany and Echo of Eons in it, but that's so I can get extra turns to have more combats.
Right. So that you could
That's
just
it.
keep you right. And it's a,
Bird be
yeah,
done.
and that's fair. That's basically like red playing extra combat, which I don't think always extra combats are inherently like busted.
Yeah. This does have a Hallbreaker Horror in it too. Let's see.
I'm hearing more cards that make me think that deck's kind of strong. But
I don't think it is.
Hullbreaker's fine if you're not like polymorphing into it
No,
and
no,
casting
no,
it
no.
fair.
No, I'm casting it for the
Yeah.
7 mana.
Right.
I've only played this deck once. Oh,
And you think this is a 4/5?
yeah.
Sounds, I mean, I think if you know what you're doing, I think it probably is. I do think, especially, I know Talrand can be like kind of a meme. Talrand is a good example of a all over the place. It can be quote unquote low and be tuned to very high just by like
Yes.
changing the kinds of counter spells, the kinds of removal and bounce spells, and the creatures that you're playing in there for the extra value off doing all the things you would already be doing with Talrand. I don't know exactly like what creatures you have in there and spells, but I know that like if you were playing some sort of weird way to loop Nexus of Fate, I would be like, oh,
No.
well, that's well, that's a deck.
So
Um,
okay, I'm looking right now. It does have some more heat in here that I didn't know was in here. I'm gonna take them out. Like I'm gonna take
underselling.
Archmage's Charm for counterspell,
Okay.
and I
Archmage's
think
Charm is very good. I like that spell.
I didn't think it was good because of the blue pips. I'm like, I'm not running
The extra
this.
pips, right?
Yeah, but I saw somebody play it. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. But they
Yeah.
copied it like 3 times.
So they got to do the things.
Yeah,
They got to do all
yeah.
three.
Uh huh.
Because it draws two.
Draw two, gain
Draw
control of
two,
target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less.
and then counter.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I like it. I when it was I think that card is pretty strong. The flexibility is really good.
My favorite counterspell in this deck is Whirlwind Denial. That's one that nobody. It's 3 cents.
Let's talk
Why?
about that card. I love that card.
Why
Let's
is
talk
it three
about it.
cents?
What's the mana value on that card?
Whirlwind Denial, 2 and a blue, instant.
Yo,
For each spell and ability opponent controls, counter unless they could pay 4.
it's the best Fluster Storm.
Oh my god!
It's so good. I think it actually should be played in like higher to like even
Yes,
CEDH more.
yes.
I think that card is so nutty. And when
this came out in Theros, I was like, whoa.
I know the first time I ever played it, I actually did have it in like my first ever version of Pramicon. I remember slamming it down here at this actual table against friends. And I remember being like, I think there were only like 2 spells on the stack, but I was like, y'all got 4?
Yeah, no.
Like they were like, oh damn. I think like no one realized what I was about to do. Like it was a very new card, and it was just like, oh damn, that was
Yeah,
actually,
man.
I think that might have been one of the last games I played in person before the pandemic. Like, that was one of those. But yeah, I remember that being like a big thing at the table. Like, what?
Yeah, this is nuts. It's an uncommon from Theros.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good card. It's a good card. And I think that's a fun thing about when you play sometimes like a lower power deck, you get to play some of those weirder counter spells that actually end up sometimes like performing as good, if not better, than like the expensive stuff.
Spell Swindle is in here. Do you think that's what do you rate that?
Isn't that just expensive mana drain?
Yes. 3 more than Mana Drain.
It's I mean, when you hit the right spell, spell swindle's rough. It hurts. I don't think
do you
people
consider
usually
that higher power? Because it
no.
has Mana Drain's ability. The ability is actually better than Mana Drain.
It is better. It is better. Just like Plasm Capture,
Yeah.
which like I don't think gets played enough, except for I have a friend that plays it often. And like every time I swear to God, he always has it. Like it'll just, oh, you're playing a deck with green blue? I'm gonna see a Plasm Capture before this friggin' game is over. It's absolutely happening.
It's a good one.
And like I think, yeah, I think those spells, even though they do that same effect, I think Mana Drain is just like the efficiency of 2 mana for like what essentially could be like 7 is just wild. At times, I know I actually don't always see Mana Drain coming. It's one of the ones that gets me more often than like just a regular like kind of counter spell. I've gotten got by Mana Drain way too often, and every time I'm always like, yeah, that is pretty goddamn good. Fuck. All right.
So I also have foil in here, which I consider to be like budget Pact of Negation.
It is, but in a mono blue deck, it just is packed, right?
Yeah, it's
like
a
it's a better.
You discard 2 cards,
right? Because you discard an island and another
card. Yeah,
yeah. I know that I used to be very high on foil. I actually think I think it's a budget high power card.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd run it. I'd run it but I'd also run it in low power because maybe in low power I can't afford the discard. and I might
Lower
just have
power.
to,
So
yeah. I mean,
not
and
low
yeah,
power.
in low power, yeah, I might just cast it for 2 and 2 blue, you know.
So this deck is less than $100.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I was trying
That
to like
definitely.
I was trying to like build a budget deck. Something that it's like I've I'm not gonna say recently. I like combat. I don't
Mhm.
play a lot of blue. Even in my Esper decks, it's not that much blue. Um yeah, I just wanted something that was cheap and playable.
Word.
Wow, the mana base is $15. That's gorgeous.
That's amazing. I think monocolored mana bases are just a thing of beauty. It's always so fun to be like, oh, I just get to pick my favorite art and then like find a handful of utility and then just go there. That's no choices over this duel, that duel. I don't know. Um, I was gonna ask,
Mhm.
um, do you think do you think the power level discussion should be more communal, like before the game? Like, should it be a thing where like you can talk out a way to like have everyone meet at the same point?
I
Or
don't
do you think at some point like you just bring a deck, it's hecka strong, and like there's just not a lot that you might be able to do to change that? Or it's hecka,
yeah,
or it's super weak and you're just like, yeah, nah, man, it's cool. We just can't play, you know?
yeah. So that's tough because the more you like try to talk about it, the longer it is before you get to play. Like Play Live, they
Mhm.
close at 9, and the tournament starts at 7. So that's 2 hours. You're lucky to get 2 games in.
Okay.
Most of the time, like my game takes up that whole time.
Right. It happens,
so
yeah,
it's
for sure.
so that's an issue, and a lot of the times people only have one deck,
Right.
1 or 2 decks. Uh, like my buddy of mine has like the Moldrotha deck, which goes every. It's like it's a 10, solid 10. It can
Okay.
go,
Because
and
just
then
yeah, it
yeah,
just has strong cards. It's consistent.
mm-hmm.
It's if you don't like just hard counter everything he does, he's
yeah,
gonna do. He's gonna
yeah.
win.
And then
Okay.
there's he has a Merfolk deck, which is also it's fucked.
Who's the commander
Um, oh my god, the one from MH2.
from MH2? Svelian?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, or
I I know what.
Svelin? I don't
Yes,
know how
yes,
to say their
yeah.
name.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That card's really strong. It draws you like extra cards when your Merfolk's
Hmm.
attack, right? Something like that. And it
When
has
she does damage.
when she deals damage, right? And then she has pseudo indestructible, right? Or something,
Yeah, if
something
you
like that.
control
3 or more, it has
two
indestructible.
other Merfolk, it has indestructible, I believe.
So it's a god. It's like a new Theros god that does a cool
Yeah,
thing.
it's full of counter spells.
That one's really
It
cool.
goes. It goes. That deck is very rare. It's not like I would say it's like a high 7. I don't,
Okay.
but
High
like
7, low 8.
yeah,
Because like the consistency of that draw
mhm.
in the zone, right?
Yeah. The thing was, one time we played and he couldn't draw land, and he just got roasted.
Okay.
But that's the way it goes, though.
Yeah, that's sometimes the high power dilemma. Like you just won't
Yeah,
draw, and you'll have all these cards that you're like, oh my god, I literally need 1 mana. I don't
yeah.
know.
But if I like show up with just Tauren, there's no way I could play against.
Either of those,
Yeah.
right?
So like it's very tough.
Even
Very
with the
tough.
perfect hand,
No, no, not with this
like you're
Tauren
like,
deck.
oh yeah, I could totally lose these cards to foil because Archaeomancer, bang bang, like maybe,
No,
maybe.
no, absolutely not.
All right. So I was going to ask, do you think some commanders inherently suffer from like just never being able to be low, regardless of how you build the deck? The one that I like to think of, it's a deck I love, but I know what happens when I pull them out. It's Corvold
A
Fake Curse
hundred, a
King.
100%.
Do you think a commander like Corval just reads, I am never going to be lower than like mid to high / up?
Yes,
Like it's just mid up. It's
yes,
never low.
yes, 100%. I
Okay.
had a
Even
Corval
if I
deck.
played like 99 lands,
Nope,
it doesn't matter.
no,
It's fine
no, no,
because
no,
you can
no.
always just sack the
Yeah,
lands.
yeah, you're
Right.
fine.
Right.
I had a Corval deck. I made it. I made it mid the first time. It won like 3 or 4 games in a row. Then I was like, this is too much. Let me take it down. I took out the fetches. I took out free sack outlets. Still was going crazy. Corval, Tulane, Urza, Sithis. Those 4 I know off the top cannot. There's no way.
Okay.
There's no
Okay.
way.
Um,
Same with Sithis. Like my Sithis deck, I was like, I've tried to build it mid, but like I was like, this is too good. And
mhm.
then I was like, I just like changed like 3 cards, and then it was high powered. It was CDH.
Okay.
Sithis is busted.
She's very strong. I've never
Too good.
I've lost to Sithis plenty of times in this last year. And Sithis hasn't even been around for super long, but I've lost to Sithis a lot.
I
Um,
I didn't even play the high power list. I'm like, this is no. I just took it apart.
and I do agree. The names you mentioned are all ones that absolutely ring a bell. Uh, I think Wizards in the last 3 years has been a little foot on the pedal heavy.
Yeah, all
Um,
of those are more recent legendaries.
with some of the legendaries and like their efficiency in what they do and how often you get to do it. They've gotten better within this last year of certain things being once per turn so that they're not as broken.
That's I feel like
But
that's mainly on white cards, and that upsets me. Just got to put that out there. Sorry.
um because yeah, you're definitely right. But I think that is that is definitely a contributor to the problem, the fact that we've just been getting a lot of crazy stuff just fresh out the box, and like
Mm,
some of these things are things that are like pre-con commanders or secondary commanders from a pre-con, and you're like, wow, that is just just asking to do dumb stuff with it.
mhm.
um
What do you think
and
about those cards I named in the 99?
Orvold in the 99 is still a problem.
Hmm.
I have him in the 99 of a dragon deck, and he's
Hmm.
still a problem.
Hmm.
The game warps around it. And
Hmm.
I think so. Urza, I don't have an Urza. I've never gotten to play with an Urza, but I know I have a Shorikai list. If I put Urza in there,
Oh,
it would be a much stronger deck. It already is a
mm,
high powered deck, but it would be extremely strong if I was able to find Urza in those games and do what Urza does and turn all my vehicles into mana. Like that's a problem. That's just a lot. You mentioned Tulane.
speaking of Urza, you've seen my Brea list.
Uh-huh.
You've seen the list, and you've played against it.
Mhm.
I consider that like a high 7, 8.
Yeah, I
Urza
think
is
so.
in there. Does
Yeah.
that change how you view it?
I think Urza in there definitely is strong because you have black and you are able to tutor into it if you'd like,
I don't have
like
to. I don't like playing tutors.
okay. So there's no tutors in there.
None that there's like artifact tutors,
Okay.
but no like creature tutors.
Okay. Yeah, I think um just knowing that you can definitely have so many artifacts out the like, yeah, Urza's still very strong in that thing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I
really,
know,
really
but
strong.
I'm saying, does it make it go to a 9?
No, I still
Okay.
think because knowing how your deck played and knowing now you're telling me you can't even find Urza basically like unless you
Yeah,
draw
no.
into it,
Mhm.
that definitely changes that. Like if you can secret commander these like crazy cards in these like 4-color decks, which a lot of people like to do because like there's just ways when you're in other colors to just like, oh, now I can play this guy, and like basically that's the deck. I think that definitely changes it, but if you're drawing into it and doing it, I think that's not as bad.
Okay.
I guess it would be more of a problem if every game I'm like, oh, you have Urza again?
Yeah.
Is that
I've
an Urza deck?
never actually got to play him.
Okay.
That's because I never play that deck.
I think Cullen/Tulane is a little bit better in the 99 because you might not have like the density of like creatures and lands to like play a creature, play a land, like keep doing the thing that in a Tulane/Cullen deck you are doing. Like it's
Yeah,
happening. It's just
totally.
happening.
100%.
And what was the last one you mentioned?
I
It was
had Tulane in my 4-color Omnath deck.
oh right.
Need
Four
those extra.
color four color Omnath.
I, that deck is taken
Uh
apart.
that's
It's
another one that I think
yeah,
should also be
yeah.
there because like they just do the thing very, very well, extremely well.
Efficiency.
Yeah, I think when the efficiency is in the zone and like you can just narrow in on it, I think that just is gonna be. I do think that then yeah, you can't have stuff that's low with that. I think with Tulane, the only way to do it is if you didn't play creatures in that deck, and just played everything but. Maybe that and that I guess that's a fair Tulane deck. A Tulane deck that doesn't play creatures. That's it. That's how you play it fair. The other commanders and then like an Urza deck that doesn't play artifacts. Yeah, that's fair. Do that.
That's funny.
If
Yeah,
you do the opposite of what the card says fully, and you can let me rifle through your list and see that there's no artifacts in there. Okay, cool. All right. You're only gonna make the one off Urza. Okay. You have no bounce
interesting.
spells. Cool. That's fine. Then yes, maybe then. I think that's the only way. If you're so anti what your commander says, then yes. But if there's any like, oh, it's just like stuff in my binder, like, oh, it's binder soup Urza. Nah, get out of here.
That's interesting.
I'm countering your mere battle ball. I'm
going to
countering.
try that. I'm gonna
Okay.
try to build a Brea with no artifacts in there, but stuff that creates artifacts.
Yeah, you could do that. I think that's fine.
Huh, that's interesting.
But like, yeah, that would make me think, okay, then this is something else. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you really went a different route.
Yeah, like Marionette Master, ETB make 3 Thopters.
Right. It makes three Thopters or 3 servos.
Servos, you're right. Yeah. You're right,
but
right.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to like power those down. And in a Corval deck, I don't think there actually is a way.
No, absolutely
not. Unless your deck doesn't play permanents, and then you never actually cast your commander. So I don't know what that deck is.
Yeah, Corval
that deck's not a thing.
Ooh, Corval is so good.
Yeah, sorry, Wizards. Wizards, you shouldn't have done that one.
You shouldn't have done that.
You should have done
that. Yeah, I think this has been a good talk. Is there anything else you want to add? Any other decks you want to bring up?
I would actually love to talk just real quick about, I think the first time I full on had to like deal with power level actually was deal with it on my own in my own deck as a thing that was being addressed was I used to play on the Play EDH server. And one of the first lists I built when getting on that server and building it intentionally because I wanted to play it like in a higher power pod was Karlov with Luris as the companion. So it was all my permanents had to be under 2 CMC. I mean 2 CMC and under, and then my spells could be whatever. But I was like playing these like I was playing combo. I had a couple weird combos in there actually. There's a couple spicy like weird ones that involve Luris, ones that involve Leonin, obviously Leonin Relic Warder. I mean Leonin Relic Warder. But I know that deck specifically, I actually first tried to put it into a mid power power level, And I originally had a card that a lot of people that play CEDH might know, Ad Nauseum, because being that all my cards were 2 CMC and under, my spells, I was like, oh, well, Ad Naus is just kind of good in here. Like,
Yeah, you could take a
even
few
if I'm not
hits.
like comboing like out with it and not playing like every 0 CMC rock, I thought, that I should be able to get a decent amount of cards, like over 10 cards most of the time that I use it, and like be happy with it. And like, yeah, you maybe take 20, but that's fine.
I
um
I love using Adnaz as like a tutor.
right, it
With
is
the,
sort of, you just like, I'm looking for a card, and when I get there I'll stop, or when I
I,
get to something that might get me that thing, I'll
I
stop.
do that quite often in my Quasar deck.
Okay, nice.
Oh, I think we played a game. It was me, you, Kev, and George.
Right,
And the
right,
card I tutored for was like ninth from the bottom.
nice.
I
Yeah.
just killed myself right there.
Oh, that I do remember that happening. I was like,
That was a good
oh,
one. That was a good
wow.
one. This
um
this deck is interesting. I like it. I'm a
and
sucker for Orzhov.
I do remember after they told me to take Adnaz out, then I realized like, ooh, with Adnaz in though, they're saying this deck is like a little too strong. So then I started like kind of putting it into higher power pods and realizing like, oh, okay, I think I mistakenly built a really strong deck.
Mm-hmm.
um and that server kind of, even though I don't play on it anymore, at least early on in like the pandemic, it kind of shaped a little bit how I thought about power levels, because things were a little rigid. You had to like submit deck lists, and people had to like approve if the thing was in that level or not, of the level that you wanted it to be in, because you would tell them, I think it's blank, what do you, and then they would tell you back, actually maybe this card and this card make it a little bit more or less. Maybe if you change those, then they would be or wouldn't be, you know what I mean? um
Mm-hmm.
they very much I got nothing bad to say about them, but I definitely remember it like would make me think a little bit sometimes too hard about like the card choices. um and yeah, I think that was one of the decks that made me kind of learn like what card choices do or do not make a deck like super up there, and how quick and easy you can do those things. Because in that deck, it was very easy to play those cards because everything was 2 CMC. So like a bad mulligan, you were still usually able to cast most of the
Yeah.
cards in the deck. So even when getting a bad draw, you were still able to play the combos. If people weren't ready for them, you were gonna do it.
What sucks about this is that you can't have the number one card for the Lures combo, Phyrexian Altar.
I know. It makes it so that I had to instead use that scepter, the not scepter, the what's it called, thornbite staff. So that actually helps to do that combo instead. Thornbite
Oh,
staff, with you put a Kaya's Ghost form on Luris,
yeah.
and then you put Thornbite staff on Soldevi Adnate, and you tap the Soldevi Adnate, sack Luris. Luris will make you 3 mana. um the Kaya's Ghost form goes out into, no, Kaya's Ghost form
Mm.
disappears, goes into the bin. You have 1 mana left over to cast it. You have mana left over to cast it by sacking the thing. And when you sack Luris, it untaps the Adnate so that you can keep doing it.
Wow.
Luris will keep coming back. You'll keep sacking the Luris to the
Yeah.
Adnate to make the mana. The Ghost form you'll still always have mana to cast Ghost form, and then as long as you have a drainer, you have into infinite ETBs or LTBs, whatever, uh, enters or dies triggers. And then you also
Wow.
have like, I don't think you, does it make infinite mana? I forget. I haven't played that combo in a bit, but yeah, I know that was like a combo when I first found it. I was like, ooh, Soldevi Adnate.
That Thornbite staff. I'm gonna have to pick up one of those.
It's a cool card. It's a
That'll
cool
go
card.
good in the window. As much stuff it dies, let's go.
And like that was another deck
That's
where like
tough.
then I also was like it made me a little combo focused on like
Mhm.
certain cards. Like I was like, ooh, Thornbite Staff. And then I started like realizing like, oh, Thornbite Staff works with this too, and this. Oh, what a cool card. So yeah, that's one that that deck definitely changed my mindset a little bit. It made me realize like, oh yeah, this is a lot of stuff and there's a lot of combos. And if this happens, then no one's gonna, oh, sorry, everybody. You
Yeah.
know. Yeah, that I think that the Play EDH server, while at times it was like a little rough in that sense, it did help shape a little bit of my understanding of what the difference in power levels are, even if I didn't always agree on certain cards that they would mention as like not being high powered or yes being high powered.
All right. Well, I have to call it. I gotta go get the kids. So
I feel you.
it's good talking to you, Lewis. Let's
Yeah, man.
get out of here.
Yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed this power level talk, and I hope that more people talk about this with whoever you're going to play with. I hope people are trying to like get a set an understanding of what their decks do and if it's going to be a fair game or not, because it feels bad when it's not.
Oh yeah, we're not here for the feels bads.
Yeah.
All right. Later.
All right. Peace, everybody. So,
3,
2,
2, 3.
What you got, Adam? Give me a 6.
I can't go last
Please.
again.
All I can give you is 1. Oh,
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 my
God
man.
damn it.
That's
Ah,
crazy.
man.
I'm
That was
angry.
wild. That was
I'm angry.
wild. That was pretty wild.
I'm
Not
so
gonna
angry.
lie. Pretty crazy, man.
so that means
Oh
I
my
start.
God.
I like this. Yeah, I
Do
like
I
it. This
keep
hand.
this?
I'm keeping this.
Dude, this is so bad. This is so bad. Oh my God. I gotta keep it. This is terrible, dude.
This is the worst. I'm keeping it. I hate
Terrible
it.
for you or us?
No, it's bad for me.
Good.
But it has good cards in there. I'm
Sure.
going last, so this isn't gonna be very good, but
Right. Draw for turn. I'll play forest and pass.
We'll draw. Play a plain old plains, and I will pass.
So, all right. Draw for turn. Okay. These are all cards. Let's go. Mountain. Pass.
be a land, be a land, be a land. Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Oh no. Alright, here we go. Crit. Bonus. Nice.
Yeah, what a
You got
bad hand.
fast.
Yeah.
That looks familiar. It's pretty good first hand, Curtis.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like it's, but I have no lands.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're doing all right.
you're
Ooh,
doing
I
okay.
already fucked up. Already fucked up. Okay. And I will pass.
Whoa.
Draw
I
for
didn't know you
turn.
did that.
Ooh. Another forest. And in search of greatness.
Yes. Oh my god, I love that card so much.
Pass the turn.
Nobody plays that card. I thought I was the only one. It's so good.
Ah,
Yeah,
nice.
and
Draw.
it will do some wonders with my hand.
Mm. Play a island. Tap for 2 to play a Talisman of Progress. Pass.
Mm.
Untap, upkeep, draw. Oh, okay. Play a mountain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tap 2, cast Magda,
Mm-hmm.
cast welding jar, and then I'll
Mm.
pass.
Be a land, or I won't be able to do anything. Be a land. Be a land.
Be
Oh my god, it's not a land.
Come on.
Dude, this is bad. Fuck. When I tap this, I'm gonna tap it for a white. There's no reason I'd tap it for anything else. Let's do that, and then. Oh, actually, I don't need to tap that. I'll just tap that. Oh, I got a flip for crit, dude. I am. Oh, tails.
Yeah, you gotta.
I take the 3 on tails.
Okay.
And it's tails.
Take it.
All right. Tap this for semblance envoy. Imprinting Arcbound Ravager. So creatures and artifacts cost 2 less to cast.
Nasty.
Ew.
For everyone though, right?
Nope.
Just
Spells
you?
cast.
Oh, it's you.
Really?
Okay. I thought it was one of those cards that's templated with spells.
No.
Not spells you cast.
So I'll tap and sack this. And tap this for Tashar. All right. And then I'll cast Blasting Station.
With no fucking mana. Don't do risky shit now.
Oh yeah, I'm getting risky, my guy.
Like, don't go too risky now.
Yeah, I did it backwards.
How many cards do you have in hand at this point?
Yeah,
Curtis?
right?
I
Yeah.
got one now. One right now.
Okay.
So I'm going to play
insane.
this.
Handle
tap
blast
this,
anyone?
Pinging you, Jesse. I'm worried that you got some things. I'll ping you for 1.
Sure.
This dies, and when this dies, this goes back to my hand. And then I play this. That's it. That's game. That's the loop.
Wait, what?
Oh, we're done?
Oh, and then you can blasting station us
Yeah.
to death.
Yeah.
Yo, you did this without lands?
Yeah.
Holy fucking
Damn.
shit. Holy fucking shit. I was gonna try to go for it like turn 3. I had something, but I mean turn 4, sorry. Not turn 3. Absolutely not.
I
But
did
turn
not choose an appropriate deck for this. Damn.
Holy
Yeah.
crap. Curtis just did it to us. Woo!
We could continue without cards.